Would you like to be chosen in 2026 by developers to represent their upcoming developments? We're going to show you how to do that today. Stay tuned. This episode of Keeping It Real is brought to you by Real Geeks. How many homes are you going to sell this year? Do you have the right tools? Is your website turning soft leads into interested buyers? Are you spending money on leads that aren't converting? Well, Real Geeks is your solution. Find out why agents across the country choose Real Geeks as their technology partner. Real Geeks was created by an agent for agents. They pride themselves on delivering a sales and marketing solution so that you can easily generate more business. Their agent websites are fast and built for lead conversion with a smooth search experience for your visitors. Real Geeks also includes an easy-to-use agent CRM. So once a lead signs up on your website, you can track their interest and have great follow-up conversations. Real Geeks is loaded with a ton of marketing tools to nurture your leads and increase brand awareness. Visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod and find out why realtors come to Real Geeks to generate more business. Again, visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod. And now, onto our show. Today's episode is brought to you by Corded.io. Are you looking for agents to join your brokerage or team? Now, as a real estate recruiter, I can tell you the answer is always yes. But most agents aren't looking to move right now. So how do you know who to contact? Well, what if I were to tell you there's a recruiting and retention tool powered by artificial intelligence that shows you exactly which agents in your local market are looking to leave their brokerage right now, and which agents at your own firm are also looking to leave you? Now, I've been recruiting realtors for 15 years and I've hired over 2,000 agents. I can tell you with no exaggeration, this is the tool I've been waiting for. Corded's AI looks for trends across dozens of variables for each agent in your market and shows you which agents they believe are likely to move. Not only does it do that, but Corded's AI went and visited my recruiting website and read everything I offer. So now when I'm recruiting, Corded's AI tells me exactly what to say based on that agent's needs and what my brokerage can offer. It even writes emails for me. I've never seen anything like it, and I use it every single day. Now, if you are looking to grow your brokerage, Corded.io is the best tool out there. Visit Corded.io to schedule a demo. Again, that's Corded.io. And now, onto the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I'm your guide and host through the show. And if you are new to the show, we appreciate you being here. If you are a returning listener, we appreciate you as well. Always the best way you can help us continue to grow and spread the word is by spreading the word. Tell another realtor about this podcast. We've done it for 7 years, 700 episodes because of you telling other agents about us. We appreciate that. Thank you. I have a gift for everybody. Anyone who would like 60 templates for Instagram. This is 30 posts and 30 story templates that you can customize in Canva. One of our sponsors gave this to me to distribute to all of our listeners. It is awesome. You can brand it with your own stuff, your picture, and these are unbelievably beautiful posts celebrating different holiday stuff. So this is actually all the different holidays in December, so it's not just Christmas, as well as you can put your photo and your branding, and it has all sorts of information, great stuff for your followers on social, especially Instagram, but you can use it for other social platforms too. So if you would like access to this template, just message us either through social media or go to our website, message us that way. Let us know you'd like those templates. We're happy to shoot that over to you. And then we just ask maybe you tag us in it so we can see that you're using it. That would be awesome. We would appreciate it. All right, guys, in just a moment, we're going to be speaking with top producer Jill Preschel from the Serhant Group. We're going to be talking to Jill about all sorts of cool things, and Jill is amazing. So I just want to get right to it. And let's just hear from Jill herself. She is amazing and could not be more excited to be on the show. And I'm more excited to have her as a guest. So let's get right to it. My conversation with Jill Preschel. Best piece of real estate advice that you've ever heard?
from my former, business partner. She would always say to me, "Jill, it's not personal. It's not about you. It's not personal. Like, move on." And she said it to me so much. I feel like I say it to myself now, where I'm just like, "It's not personal. Move on." I mean, sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not.
And whether it is or not, it's the reality that you making the reality that it isn't is probably a good idea, even if it is personal, right? It's just a good idea to have that frame so that even if it is, you're like, I can get past this. It doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah, you're right. It's such a good tool to get past whatever the moment is.
When they say that the physicists say all the reality is mostly subjective anyway. So if it's all
I
subjective, we might as well choose what we want it to be. That's
Right?
what Yeah, it's what the one thing that the schizophrenics have over us, and nobody wants schizophrenia, and I'm not making light of it, but just this idea of choosing your own. Well, they don't really choose the reality, but they live in a different reality, and if it unfortunately doesn't serve them, but maybe we can create one that serves ourselves. And worst piece of advice you've received in real estate?
The worst piece of advice. So I have worked, at development companies very often. It was running portfolios of buildings, sometimes 15 buildings, running the sales and marketing. At one point, I was helping to run a division, and someone gave me the advice, do it now and ask for forgiveness later. And I think that is terrible advice. I think that is just the worst advice, really and truly. And I'm seeing a lot of people in our industry sort of doing that now,
Mm.
and it's just terrible advice.
Why is it terrible?
I think so much of what we do is so nuanced
Mhm.
that there should be conversations before actions are taken, and you should get authorization to, enact in a certain way. That's where it gets sticky and messy and problematic when you don't get the authorization, when you don't get the buy-in. Like, do the extra work a little harder, get the buy-in, then do the thing, you
Yeah, it
know?
almost seems like when people say, ask for forgiveness later, it's almost a shortcut to,
Yes.
conscientiousness. Like maybe there's a way that we could still, do get what we want, but be respectful of other people's needs. And that usually is kind of when people say it, it's usually like a disrespect to somebody's actual needs. You're like, I'm just gonna, they'll forgive me. Right.
Yeah,
And yeah,
or intelligence, right? Like, just
right.
assuming you know best, right? But,
Mhm.
like, there are other brains and other voices, and let's get the best information and operate from that point of view.
I had one of the top producers here in Chicago. Actually, I think the top producer many years ago on my show, and this is somebody who is so busy that you can't even I mean, we all know top producers; they're too busy to even do this. He was doing me a favor by being on the shows before I really had much of an audience, and it was like 8 minutes till we were going to be on, and he emails me. He goes, "I'm going to be 2 minutes late, and I'm super sorry about that." And this guy, by the way, has a reputation of being pretty harsh and brash and not particularly friendly and nice. And I saw that and I was like, oh, no big deal. I run back like, dude, no big
Right.
deal. Like, take your time. You're busy, and this is a
Yeah.
show that's not going to help you in any way anyway. So kind of like, oh, you don't owe me that. And I said that to him when he got on. He goes, no, I do owe that to you. The conscientiousness, right?
Oh.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's he didn't even have to ask for forgiveness, but he could have just shown up 10 minutes late and been like, I'm sorry. And I would have been like, that's fine,
Right.
but he had the conscientiousness to do that, and I thought that's why he's so good. And by the way, I showed up a
Yes.
little bit late, so I did not do that for Jill. I showed up a few minutes late, so shame on me. So I'm telling on myself, but this is exactly what you're talking about, and I think that is such a great lesson. It's just good customer service, I think.
It
Well,
is,
anyway,
yeah.
Jill Preschel is our guest on the show today. She is with the Sirhan Group in New York, and actually, of course, Sirhan Group is everywhere. But let's tell you more about Jill. And by the way, Jill found us, or I don't know,
I
maybe
did.
we originally found Jill, but she wrote me the kindest and nicest, one of the nicest notes I have ever received. And I will tell you, for everyone, being nice gets you things, and it has worked out quite well for me in my life. And I'm always shocked when people don't do that, when they know they could. Even, and again, she wrote me, I think, a very authentic note, and I wish I could share it with you. But the point is as soon as she wrote that, I was like, oh, we're having her on. Like,
Oh, awesome.
maybe it was just for my ego, but the reality of it was, I went, oh, this is a genuine human being, and she cared enough and she's busy. She is. Wait till you hear what she does. She doesn't have the time to do this, and so the fact that she wrote me, I like almost made me want to cry. It was so sweet. So thank
Oh,
you for that, and I'm so honored to have you on the show. And again, that was just such a nice note. So Jill Preschel, let me tell you about her before she actually comes on. She's built a distinguished career in New York City and real estate since 2007, so almost 20 years now, and overseeing transactions exceeding $2 billion in value, specializing in luxury and new developments across Flatiron, West Village, and Gramercy. Oh boy, that must be not fun to be in the coolest neighborhoods in New York. She brings strategic insights to every deal. At Sirhan, she shapes new development strategy while driving platform growth. She also mentors agents through the Sell It Like Sirhan program. We all know who Sirhan is and why he is so much of a big deal. And she teaches business development, personal branding, high performance systems that deliver results like he gets and she gets. Her client service philosophy combines data driven analysis with psychological insight and relationship focused care. When working with whether working with buyers, sellers, developers, investors, she has a gift for distilling complexity into clarity. She's going to do that today, helping clients make confident, informed decisions at every stage of the process. Follow her on Instagram at Jill Preschel, which is Preschel. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. Jill, welcome.
thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am excited for to have you here as well, and thank you again for the kind note. The reason I do this show is you've sort of made a mention of what you thought this provided for at least the people listening in the industry, and I thought was very sweet, and yeah, that's why we do it. And I'm excited to have you, who is a really big deal here on the show. So let's start at the start. Let's people who maybe aren't familiar yet with you. How'd you get into real estate?
Sure. So, um, from an early age, I was, obsessed with architecture, design, how environments shape people, and how, in particular, homes in Manhattan and buying homes can really set folks up for even generational wealth. So, how
Yeah.
you can help start that for folks. Um, and early on, I read a book, The Architecture of Happiness,
Mm,
and that really opened my eyes to just sort of this impact of your space on who you are and, like, how you feel. Um, and I started at Corcoran Sunshine, and that's a new development sales and marketing firm. Um, and I held every seat in new development sales. So starting from, greeting you at the door when you walk in, um, to being sales director. Um, and so it's just really about what drew me was the marriage of the creative world and the business world. That was really roundabout. Did I answer your question?
So no, yeah, we've got started down the journey. So started at Corcoran, and
Yeah.
then how did you evolve from that to where you are now?
Sure, I was at Corcoran Sunshine, I was on site on the weekends, I ended up, working for a managing director who had the biggest portfolio for the biggest developer in Manhattan, really exciting, and I learned a lot, and then, from there, I was able to work at a developer's office on really incredible properties, including the Woolworth.
Mm,
Um, Became a sales director and worked with some really, really intelligent private equity and capital partners. And from there, I shifted to the development side where we were the money, we were the capital. So being in charge of making these decisions was a really exciting shift for me. Um, and then as I became a mom, I shifted from there to the brokerage side.
what was it like switching from sort of working high level to and working B2B really, I guess, working in these big developments, working for developers and investors, institutional kind of investors, I guess, to the brokerage level, to the individual wanting to buy and sell, and in New York, that's obviously that's not easy. So, what was the shift like for you?
Yeah, I was really lucky. I had people that really took an interest in me. I was 25 on the development side, as a director of sales, maybe 28, and and Ken Horn at Alchemy and Joel Breikoff would literally tell me to sit at the table and speak up, because being that young, surrounded by folks in equity, like the capital guys, the decision makers, the architects, um, I would like raise my hand or whisper, and Ken would take me aside and say, "You're here for a reason. Speak up. We want to hear your voice." Um, that really helped me with that sort of a mindset really helped with the brokerage side, right? Because knowing what you know, having that expertise and having the confidence to speak clearly and be able to influence folks based on having that knowledge, not based on ego, I think it is probably one of the most important skills.
Yeah, you had a seat at the table, and as a 25-year-old, you were encouraged to have an equitable seat at the table where you like, "Oh, no, we need to hear from you." So I can't imagine the skills you picked up just from listening to the other people at the table and how they communicated, and it's just a level of skill and professionalism that an organization that is boy, it would serve you in any role, in any industry, I imagine.
Do you know what my biggest sort of thing I think that I've learned from that was whenever I have conversations with people, like people will find that I'll then email, so great to talk to you. We just talked about these things. And that habit is from being in a room with, capital partners when they agree to things and just wanting to make sure that they remember what
Sure.
they agreed to because I'm running with that thing that you said I could do. Um, that's something I think is really helpful to be able to sort of summarize these conversations in email. I know it sounds so silly, but
No, it doesn't, and we've done 700 episodes, and I don't think anybody has ever given that exact tip after conversations. And really, this could be done with anybody, whether it's a client buying their first condo or single family home, to institutional investors, to architects, to anyone really. This idea of a summary email is not very well, it's more common now because we have AI that can just listen
yeah,
to our meetings and kind of, although it's not really sending it to the other person. We would still have to do that unless there's a way to do that. But the point is it's easier to do now than ever because you'll get the information and then you can forward, kind of fire it out. And I am seeing people do that more, but only because of AI. And I think if I would have seen that more pre AI, I would always have been impressed with that person. Like, wow, this person's on top of things. And I should be doing that myself. So you just gave me an idea. But a great tip for all of our listeners: after a conversation with your client or anyone that you're working with, whether even it's a vendor partner, send a summary email and say, "Hey, just want to make
right,
sure I got this all right. Bang, bang, bang.
right,
And next steps are this, and I will follow up in this time or whatever." I mean, boy, you will never go wrong with that. People, people are.
right,
It's kind of like it's almost like sending out an offer to working with a buyer to a seller or to a seller's agent, and then not calling them going, I just want to make sure you got it. And we
right.
really want this. And, a lot of people don't even do that. And so I loved it that you gave that tip. And it's such a simple one, but it's super effective. And so that was super helpful in and of itself.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
and it also sorry to jump in, it doesn't have to be weird because, I talk about this too a little bit with my coaching clients, and they're always like, "Well, isn't that a little weird to be like," but, like, you have to find your authentic voice and your genuine
sure.
approach. Like, just wanna make sure,
Yeah.
we're on the same page or, I think we talked about this and you'd be surprised how many times, especially with your first time home buyers, where they're like, "Wait, it's so emotional. I'm so stressed. I missed that last third, which was the most important third of what
Right.
you needed me to do so I can live in this home." Yeah.
When I started using AI to listen in on meetings, I first was against it, and not because it's not useful. I thought it was incredibly useful, but I didn't like in a Zoom meeting that you would see this sort of third, this
Right.
robot come into the room, and I just thought, it's going to freak people out, and they're going to think I'm like recording it, which I guess technically you are. But I thought, people just aren't going to they're not going to feel comfortable doing that. And I found that like people don't really care. I think we're all used to it now. But I was really against it because I just go, I don't want people thinking that, anyway, whatever. I just felt there was a privacy thing there. And I guess people don't think about that anymore. But I use it now and nobody cares. And I tell people, I go, hey, my note taker, my robot's coming into the room only because I don't want to miss anything you say. And I write stuff down, but I'll probably miss something. So this will help me remember, is that okay? I even asked for their permission and they always appreciate that. And then I'm gonna start sending them those summaries now
Oh,
because of
yeah.
course, why not?
I'm
Yeah,
so glad. Yeah, it's I love those AI note takers. They're great. It
yeah.
makes it so much easier actually.
They're only getting better. I hope that, and I don't know if Apple has this yet. I'm sure Siri will have this at some point, and it'll probably be the only one that's allowed to be used, although maybe you can use a third-party app. Google with Android probably already has a way to do this, but there should be able to listen in real time on your cell phones too, and in the same way, and I don't know if phone calls it's probably different because of FCC rules. Maybe that's not legal, so I don't know how that works with phone calls. But Zoom meetings, it certainly is there, and I
Yes.
hope that we have some version of that for phone calls in a compliant way where we can, because
Yes.
that's realtors are on their cell phones all day. Okay, so now you're now working with agents as well and teaching and training. Have you always been a trainer, or was this sort of a newer passion for you?
That's such a I love that question. At Alchemy, on the development side and at Landsea Homes on the development side, there were sales teams that I were responsible for. And so, being the senior sales person, there is there is sort of a, "This is how we do things. This is best practices. What do you think about that? Do you like that?" And then sort of taking that one step further with the Sell It coaching, where there's really like a course, a curriculum, a path, 5 pillars, where we focus to level up everybody's business across these 5 pillars. Um, and I think the most surprising thing that's come from it is how much I'm growing and learning and expanding as a coach.
Mm.
I wasn't
Yeah,
expecting that.
it's they say that the teachers get just as much benefit as the student if done correctly, right? Because you're learning from them, you're getting immediate feedback on how well you're able to, you know, sort of give this information and present it, and then you're also reinforcing it yourself by doing it. So I imagine they
Yeah.
say if you could teach it to somebody, you're probably pretty competent at it, and that's a great way to know if your skills are up to par. And again, ChatGPT is a great place to practice all of these things because you can get at least virtual feedback in real time when you're driving now, if you just want to start working on your pitch or objection handling or any of that. But I always think, yeah, having a coach, being coachable first is like the most important thing, and then also getting a coach. And I think if every athlete has one, why would I not have one? Like, certainly if the very best athletes in the world have them, I imagine that is something I would probably want as well. um, but I want to talk about first, I want to talk about development, because new development in particular, and just for tips for our audience who are our agents, who are always wondering, how do you get selected as an agent to represent a developer or development? And I know there's no easy path to do that necessarily, but if somebody was to say, hey, for 2026 I want to make that one of my goals, to at least figure out that pathway, and maybe it'll take 5 years before I get there, but what do I need to start thinking about and doing to get myself that skill set kind of started? What would you recommend?
Sure. One thing you said, which I think is so true, like this idea of your temperament, right? Like being coachable, being, pleasant to be around.
Mhm.
sounds so basic, but we recently took over a new development because the client said, he just, didn't wanna be in meetings with those people anymore,
Mm,
that it was so unpleasant and that everything was an argument. Um, and he was sort of like, "I want there to be back and forth when you feel strongly about something, but you can't feel strongly about everything."
sure.
Um, so I think the first thing is temperament, which is surprising. Uh, and then the second thing I would say is really knowing your market, knowing the data. Um, and the third thing is showing up. So if there's a developer that you want to make a connection with, um, showing up at the development,
Yeah.
walking the home, taking it in, being there.
Yeah, offering to do stuff for free, really, and offering to
Yes.
almost be an intern to an extent because you care so much that you're willing to put in the a little bit of maybe the grunt work, even though they're not paying you. And that's I hear that from a lot of agents who have said, "Oh, if you want to get developers, you have to go hang out with them, and you have to really be willing to just help them out." For nothing for a while, and maybe they'll give you a chance one day. But that's how most everything works, right? Like, if I want to get good at anything, if I want a real mentor, I have to sort of throw myself at that person and sort of make the case that I need some of your time, and I'm willing to do this for you in exchange. And so I think you're right. I think a lot of it's just spending time at the developments, showing your value before you get the job, and just kind of hanging out and showing up until one day that agent they're working with is not being very agreeable in meetings, like you were saying, and all of a sudden they're like, there's this other person that's really nice and hangs out and does things and helps. So I love that. So yeah, I think that's great. And as far as it's funny. I have a realtor, Carrie McCormick, who comes on my show every month. She's here in Chicago, and she is God, $300 million annual producer, just insane. Does it all herself basically,
Wow, amazing.
and yeah, just insane. And she insane in the best possible way. I don't mean she's
Yeah,
insane.
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I don't want to suggest. No, she's the best. She's the sweetest person ever. And she got works with developers. I live in one of her developments. I'm not hers, but she represented the developer. Funny enough, actually selling my place today. So thank you, Carrie. Made a bunch of money on that. So thank you. But I asked her, how'd you get your first development? She goes, oh, she got her license like weeks before. This is 20 some years ago. She goes, I just walked over, I saw this like this building that was being built, and I said, I wonder how an agent gets to be. She literally just walked like 2 miles to this because she was in downtown. She had a different job. She was in advertising at the time, but she just ended up walking during lunch one day to this building, and she goes, hey, how does an agent get to be one of your eight, or how does somebody get to become a thing? And he's like, oh, well, you do this, and this. And she goes, okay, I'll do that. And, she was able to get that. And so sometimes it's just, showing up, like you said, and being kind and good and a good person. So I love that. And maybe, and then again, really learning that skill, that job
Right.
is boy, that's tough.
Because
And yeah.
sorry to jump in, but something you said is sort of like hanging out with the developers, which I see a lot of people do.
Mm,
And then the second part of what you said, which was like knowing your stuff and
yeah.
showing up. And I think there is sort of like a point of clarity in the because I see a lot of people like hanging out, being friends with investors and developers, but
Hmm.
really like the reason why they would choose me is because like I'm a doer, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
the
You know
one
how to
hanging
get stuff
out.
done. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually recently and I don't like this term at all, but someone was like she's so aggressive with how she gets things done, you know? And I don't like that, but like being that person who's like what you said, adding value, going to figure it out, going to do the things with the expertise. Because a lot of the coaching clients that I work with sometimes are sort of like, I am hanging out with them. They're my friend.
Right.
But it's, you want to make that business connection. You want to show
Yeah.
that you can add value and that you know the market, you have the buyers. And also, I recently had a coaching client in Houston, Texas, and he kept marketing for the community, like, highlighting some of the notable features, highlighting records breaking sales. And it caught the developer's attention, and he said,
Sure.
"You're gonna get my next
Yeah.
plot. You're gonna
Yeah.
list that one because you are thinking so creatively outside of the box." His name is Pratik. He's in Houston, Texas.
Wow.
I thought that was so fantastic of him to sort of do the thing, like you're saying, add the value, you know?
Yeah, it is funny because we get a lot of a listener fan mail around our guests because they're so typically they're titans in whatever market they're in. And so we'll get somebody who will message me and go, "Hey, DJ, you know so and so, you had them on your show. How do you recommend I reach out? I really like to be on their team." And my response to that is always like, "Well, I have no idea. I don't work for them." But I'd say if it was me, I would wonder what value you could provide me, not because I'm trying to be, to be a user, but if I'm going to bring you on my team and I'm already pretty successful and I just got interviewed and you heard me on the show, I'd want to know why should have you on my team? What are you bringing to the table versus well, I listened to this interview and this woman sounds like she has this unbelievable team and she gives them leads and all this. It's like, yeah, yeah, everyone's going to want that. Like you need to come to them, and that's what sounds like. A lot of like you do. It's not aggression. It's assertiveness, right? It's just coming and saying, oh, I have an idea for you. How about this? And people who are at the top of their game, they love hearing, I got an idea for you, right?
Right.
We all love that.
Yes. Yeah, it's so true.
Let's pivot to luxury because this
Oh,
is what
sure.
everybody, no, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of agents who aren't particularly doing luxury or aren't doing a lot of luxury think they want more of. And maybe they do, and maybe it would be perfect for their business, and maybe it wouldn't. But it's certainly something that people aspire to. And let's talk about luxury. So, how is the luxury buyer in particular? I know you sort of have thoughts about their psychology. Like, what are they looking for? How do they choose agents? And, how do you best serve them? That's three
Yeah,
questions, but you can, sorry, they say never ask more than one question. So, just what do you think about luxury buyers right now?
yeah. Um, the luxury buyer psychology is changing because, you know, there's a lot of developments, at least in Manhattan and in Brooklyn, that there are so many bells and whistles.
Hmm.
But it's like going back to the basics, right? It's in Manhattan, we want tall ceilings, light and air, expansive spaces, um, and it has to be sort of in a prime location. You can't
Hmm.
ever change a location, you can't ever change ceiling heights, and you can't ever change views. Um, I was once talking to a friend of a friend, and she said, "I have $15 million as my budget. We're expecting another baby. There's nothing available on the market. Our home that we're living in is too small. There's this one opportunity. It's right on Broadway. That's supposed to be the wow moment that the entire apartment, all of the windows are facing Broadway, and I hate it." And I said, "Well, why would you buy something that's no longer going to be a liquid asset for you? You're going to have to live there. You're going to have to spend that money, and you're going to have to see that view every day. Like, why would you do that?" And she was sort of like, "'Cause I'm pregnant and we can't fit in our current home."
Mm.
And I said, we'll figure something out. Let's talk about off-market opportunities. Let's, like, really crystallize what it is that you want." You know, just because you have the budget and you have an urgent need doesn't mean that you should move forward. But I think a lot of times brokers would sort of push there, right? They would say, "That person's already 90% there. Just push them. Just push them to buy that one home." But she would have hated it.
Yeah.
So it's about, alignment, it's about clarity, not pressure, and it's really about simplifying and going back to the basics. I think, in my opinion.
Were you able to find something else for her?
Well, it's a very funky market in Manhattan right now. And there were a few opportunities that she was very interested in, but she can't buy them now. They're in pre-sales, right? So she she can't move in now is what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so that's where we shifted, looking at something where she could sort of customize because they're still in pre-development and pre-sales and that whole thing. It's not built yet, so she has more ability to make it her own and customize it.
Yeah. It's funny too. We think, boy, having a $15 million buyer, that just like sounds like heaven. And then you realize, well, there aren't that many properties that exist that are on the market. It's not like, oh, there's 500 to choose from. We'll just pick whatever. And thankfully new developments are coming along, but it is, we talk about that here in Chicago when somebody sells a Carrie just sold Michael Jordan's old place,
Oh,
and
cool.
it took a long time to sell it. I don't think it took a long time under her, but it had been on the market for a long, long time, and nobody bought it. It's like, well, yeah, because it's $20 million, and it's a very specific style, and you'd have to really love that style to drop 20 million or whatever the price was. And it's like, it's not that easy to sell something like that, even though you'd think, boy, the commission must be nice. It's like, well, yeah, but might sit there for a few years. So yeah, it's luxury has that challenge. And also too, let's talk about luxury, another challenge, which is, and I talk to a lot of agents or a lot of agents, I call them realtors agents on the West Coast, especially in the entertainment district of LA and the neighboring areas, who say, it sounds really great to have these celebrity clients, and it is, sports athletes, singers, whatever, TV, and they said, but these people have teams, and they have all sorts of teams, and you have to win everybody over. It's not just the celebrity; they're the easy one usually. It's the seven other people that surround them, and so it's like it's exhausting. You got to really serve like seven different masters. So I imagine that comes up a lot of times with the ultra wealthy.
Yeah, I recently was on the buy side and we were buying something from like one of the, I would say, top financial minds maybe of our time.
Hmm.
And we didn't know. And the buy side, our broker, our attorney rather, at one point said, "Jill, do you know you're buying from so and so? That's why it's taking so long because there are literally 10 people involved that need to say okay." I was like, "Oh, well, that makes more sense now." The simple question of X, Y, and Z, 10 people need to absorb that question, filter through their process and then yeah. So in New York, there is, just like there is where you are, um, a little bit of that. And it takes patience and it takes really just trusting the process. I think, at least I find.
Yeah, and just realizing that it's not even so much that the grass is not greener, but it's different grass. It's a different playing
Yeah.
field, and it
Yeah.
requires different skills and different time frames, and all of that. But let's talk about data, because I think, especially for people who have luxury clients, most of them are going to be fairly intelligent and data minded, or at least rational minded if they're good at managing money, which they probably are. So let's talk about data and behavioral insights to sort of strengthen either your decision making or your client's decision making. I know this is a big passion of yours. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm sort of nerdy in that, like, I really love learning about the psychology of buying. I love Daniel Kahneman, which is he has like a bunch of books. He had been on a bunch of podcasts. I love listening to anything he had said or anything he wrote. I find it really interesting, and it's a lot about the psychology of like you have these two systems in your brain, and you have to appeal to sort of both of them in order to
Mhm.
get successfully to the sale. Um, and so with the data, that is one system of the brain, it's the analytical side. So it's really simplifying the data into digestible bites and making sure the person understands what that data means for them and their
Yeah,
goal.
sure.
Um, we had that recently with we had a listing in Tribeca. We brought it on the market a year ago. We were a little bit above the market, but it's pristine, beautiful. My seller wasn't really very motivated to sell at that time. Then we relisted it a little bit less, but there was nothing on the market. And day 3 maybe of being on the market, we had 3 bids, you know, over list, and that was just sort of an example of saying, "Okay, well, where do we need a price based on the data? There's actually no inventory now. So how can we price in an attractive manner when there's absolutely no inventory and make sure that we're all aligned with that, to move forward?" So just simplifying the data so it makes sense, being able to communicate that data. And to your point, ChatGPT or AI is great for that. Like, you've mentioned a few times AI. I use Claude and I use
Hmm.
ChatGPT. Um, and that's an example of, "Hey, I'm in this situation. This is the data. How do you think this data impacts or makes sense to this seller or buyer? Or what would be useful to know? And how do I communicate that in the simplest fashion where it's easily understood by someone who doesn't know real estate jargon or doesn't know this market?" Um, I also do that sometimes with messages where I'm like, "How do you make this less direct? How
Yeah.
do you make this a little softer?"
I think what you're talking about is intentionality. So, you mentioned the two systems. So, one being the rational, logical, sort of unfeeling or unmoved by motion side of us, which is think like, oh, this is an old reference that nobody will remember unless you're of a certain age, but like Spock from from Star Trek. He was all logical, he had no emotions, and he just looked at facts and figures. And that's one side, and that's
Right.
typically our left hemisphere. And then we have the right side, which is the more sort of less rational, more driven by emotions, and can let emotions get away from us even, and let that
Mhm.
drive the bus. But that being less predictable and more sort of creative and explosive, and really, so tying those together in messaging is an art for sure, because you're right. So I'm a really big fan of this in particular because I study dialectic behavior therapy, DBT. It's unbelievably
Cool.
great for communication. If anyone hasn't looked into DBT, it's the best skill set training I've ever learned for internal communication and external communication. But anyway, they talk about what they call wise mind, which wise mind is the synthesis of, they call it reason brain and emotion brain, and you need both because they're both really important. And you as a human want to really not make emotion strictly from emotion mind or reason mind, because you're going to miss something that's probably pretty human or pretty analytical if you don't. And so you want to get to what they call wise mind, which is the synthesis of both of those. But in extrapolating that to another person that you have to communicate to, you have to do the same thing, and you really have to. So from an emotional side, how do you try to meet the emotional need of that person?
What a good question. I think I've gotten better at this since becoming a mom. I feel like that really that skill has been flexed, and I've become an expert at that. And I think it's because people just at their core wanna be seen and heard. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yep.
So, even just with my kids, sometimes at the end of the day, if they're just sharing and about everything, even just sort of, and it's a Chris Voss technique,
Yeah.
actually. It's
Love Chris
the
Voss.
mirroring. I'll mirror my kids just wanna know I'm listening, I hear them. They actually don't want my input, so repeating back to them. And the same sort of goes with your developers, your investors, your buyers, your sellers. They wanna feel seen and heard. They wanna know that you understand. Um, and that mirroring technique, is long as it's coming from a genuine place, an
Yeah.
authentic place, um, is really helpful when you're in the emotional state, especially if you need to de-escalate something.
Yeah.
Uh, that's
Which is
my
what Chris
biggest
Voss,
tool.
his job was to do that, right? He was a
Yes.
negotiator for the
Yes.
FBI or CIA, or I can't remember, one of the 2. CIA maybe? Anyway, he would go all over the world, and he would have to make friends with some of the worst people, and
Yes.
especially in hostage situations or in terrorist situations, and
Yeah.
he had to de-escalate, and he said that a lot of times the emotional part of the idea of connecting with somebody emotionally was so effective. And it was
Yes.
often, it's what we really call empathy, and we tend to think of empathy as like feeling for somebody, but it's
Right.
really like feeling with somebody. It's like,
Yes.
oh, you're in pain, I'm in pain with you, I'm here with
Yes.
you. I'm not here to solve your thing. I'm here for you to be seen and heard, like you said, which is, I'm angry when you're angry. You're right. It has to be authentic, and people can sniff out in authenticity in a second, right? Like we think you don't have to worry about fooling people if you're not trying to fool them. Like if you're a genuine person, people will typically understand that. But understanding how to feel with somebody that's a skill. And like you said, as a mom, you probably see it. They always say, what's the expression? Something about a parent is only as happy as their unhappiest child,
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that. Because
It's so
that,
true.
yeah, yeah,
And another thing that Chris Voss said that's really good for the emotional, he said something like, when he was in tough situations and someone would say like, "I need a helicopter in 30 minutes," or
yeah,
whatever it would be, he wouldn't say no. He would say, "How would you like me to do that?"
yeah, yeah.
And I love that as a tool.
Because
It's
now you're a
that's
team. You're working together as a
yes.
team. Yeah.
And that I think is probably most appropriate for your investors or your developers. I don't think that's really a tool in the buy side or the sell side, but it may be. But, when you sit with developers and they're sort of like, "I need this from you by this date," but maybe you're missing information you need to do that thing, saying, "Well, I don't have this and I don't have that. How would you like me to do that?"
Mhm.
And then it really helps them, as you're saying, like work with you to figure it out.
Because everybody, when they express a need, they don't think it's crazy and they don't think you should
Right.
say no, right? So even if it is a no, even it's like there's no way to do that. If you tell them like that's not possible, maybe they'll be the kind of person that can hear that and unpivot and understand. But most of us dig in. We are attached to our identities and our thoughts and our beliefs, and we don't want to hear that. Maybe we want to hear down the road, like, okay, let's figure out a different path. But we want to hear, I hear you, I see that. Let's explore it together. Let's figure it out. And I mean, who doesn't want that? That's like magic too. It's what people in relationships, right? It's not, hey, you did this thing and it made me feel crummy, and the other person goes, I didn't mean to do that. It's like, okay, yeah, we get it, but instead of that, be like, oh my god, I'm so sorry that that happened, that you felt that way. How can I do it differently? As opposed to, I didn't do that and you do this and I don't say anything about that, right? It's this idea of not hitting conflict head first in opposition, but to go like, oh wow, tell me more about that. How do we figure this out? I love that.
Right. Yeah.
Let's your talk about Sirhan, because we certain
Oh,
not
yes.
not the man himself, but the company. I want to hear about what you love about that, because we hear, he almost has a mythological sort of status in this business, but in this industry, he's also put together a company that people really seem to love. And I've had other people from that organization here, and boy, they speak so highly of it. So what's the kind of environment, because this would be helpful for any of our listeners who are or team leaders, or maybe they're managing brokers, or they have their own brokerage or whatever. What is it that the leadership there does to make you so happy continuing to be there?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this company and I have, worked at a bunch of different firms that are sort of based in Manhattan and service Brooklyn. And the reason why I like this company the best is there is this sort of high touch concierge level approach to the agents. So when I have a question about something, I email and I get a person who responds to me I mean within 6 hours, but usually it's within 45 minutes
Yeah.
with an actual solution. Um, so everything is simple, everything is simplified so that we can sort of focus on our business. But I can also talk about the person because Ryan, and I first met, maybe it was like 10 years ago, when I was on the development side and I hired him to sell for me. So I've known him for a very long time. Um, and we just had our big conference in Florida for Sell It and Sirhan, and I was one of the speakers on a panel with him, and he introduced me by saying that when he knew me then, I wasn't so smiley, that this is a new version of me in front of 2,000 people, which I thought was really funny. Um, but I've really seen him grow as a leader and as a broker, and he is such a visionary. He is so
Yeah.
even. His his brain is insane. He will remember details that I don't even remember. He reminded me of a deal recently that I did that I forgot I did. He was like, "Well, you did that deal, so what do you mean?
Yeah.
Remember?" So
Yeah.
anyway, I think he's a wonderful person, and I think the company that he's built, how it's focused on the agent and the agent needs is is really special. So,
Wow. Well, perfectly said. And I think this is just a great place to wrap up. I will say too, for those of us listening who don't work in, or well, whether if you do work in the New York area and you do want to sort of explore Sirhan and see if there's an opportunity that you can bring to them, or that maybe they can work with you on, obviously you could reach out to Jill and see if there's any synergy there. But for everyone else who is working in different markets, maybe some of your markets feed into that area and you would want to connect with Jill. If you feel that she would be a good fit, sounds like she would. She's done a lot of great deals, and she's just a lovely person and takes her job very seriously. And who wants who wants anything less than that? So if you want to reach out to Jill, and you should, because she has people that leave her area too, and connect and really build that strong network, reach out to her. And you can find her really anywhere. She's easy. Just Google her. We'll have her contact info in the show notes, but also follow her on Instagram. It's Jill Preschel, Preschel. And she will be super appreciative. She's a wonderful person. And again, found her way to us, and we couldn't have been more honored to hear from you. And we always love that when other people find us, or just at least notice us in any way. It means a lot. And also too, for everyone out there whoever the people that you admire in this industry, tell them that they probably don't hear it as much as you'd think, and let them know. Even if you don't want anything from them, you shouldn't. Just tell them what you think about them. And a lot of those people don't get as much attention in that way as you might imagine. So definitely do that. It gets you it gets you a lot of things too, and it just makes a lot of friends. It makes a friend. Now I have a friend, Jill. So Jill, thank you for being on the show. We will thank you on behalf of our audience. We know how busy you are. I mean, you're crazy busy. And also too, on behalf of Jill and myself, thank you to all of our audience making it to the end of the episode. Please help us. The best way you could do that, tell a friend. Think of one other realtor that needs to hear from this conversation with Jill, and shoot them a link over, or just tell them to pull up a podcast app, search for Keeping It Real. The one with my name on it, there's a few others, which if I would go back and change my podcast to a different name 7 years ago, I probably would have. I didn't think about that at the time, but you'll find me in DJ Paris. Just look for my name. It's pretty easy to find. We'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. But tell a friend. Also, leave us a review. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you think, what you like about the show, and how we can even make it better. Because this is for you. This isn't for me. I sit here in a room all day. I don't get to go out and practice. So I need to know what you guys need so that I can continue to improve. And also, thanks to our sponsors and everyone who helps makes this show possible. We're 700 episodes in, I believe, now, and I couldn't do it without a great team. And the reason I have a team is because we have so many listeners who help get us sponsors, who then, of course, help pay the bills. So thank you to everybody. It's really an honor to do this and to speak to people like Jill. And next time I'm in New York City, maybe we can go out to Cats or something and
I
have
I would love that.
have a corned
That just
beef or
made my
pastrami.
day.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would love that. All right. Uh, anyway, thank you, Jill, and we will
Thank
see
you.
everybody on the next episode. So thanks for listening,
Thank you
watching.
so, so much.
Thanks, Jill.